All right. So I'm going to let Sarah, our Vice President, lead the next few slides. So Sarah will be going over the agenda.
Hi, everyone. I'm the Vice President of the Association of Graduate Students. So we have upcoming events, and then we're gonna talk about the upcoming events that we have. We have future workshops that we're doing, and future raffles and in-person events that we're going to talk about. And then we're going to kind of talk about the concerns and questions that you'll have about the graduate school. So that's a perfect time for y'all to open up and kind of talk about. Oh, I'm sorry, Ellen. Is there noise in my background?
No, you're fine, Sarah. Just you can continue.
Oh, okay. So yeah, then I'm going to go over concerns and questions about the graduate school. So that's kind of a time for you guys to open up and kind of ask us any questions about it. And then we'll have the workshop, and then we'll have the discussions. So yeah, on March 21st, we'll be going over serial killers and person organizational fit. That will be a workshop that we'll be discussing. And then April 18th, we'll be doing a professional development through LinkedIn. So you'll kind of get more insight into how to work LinkedIn and how to increase your professional development. And then also that's when we'll start the election for new officers. So if you're interested in becoming an officer of AGS, just that's a great time for being elected for it. And then we don't have dates for this right now, but we'll be having an in-person event, social event, and then we'll also be having an April fundraiser. That will be obviously sometime in April, along with the social event. So yeah, if you guys have any questions or concerns, you're welcome to unmute or just put into the chat. Even if after the slide and you still have questions and concerns, just put it in there and we'll make sure to answer for you. Okay, if no one has any concerns or questions, we can start the workshop.
Awesome. So my name is Emily Brown, President of Association of Graduate Students, and I'll be leading the resilience part of this presentation, which is named Building Resilience Through Community and Social Support with a DEI Focus. DEI is Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and my co-presenter, Jenny Samuel, will be leading that part. Okay, so our first engagement question is, how much do you know about resilience? Before I start talking more about resilience, I just want to understand how much your current knowledge is on the subject of resilience. So please put in the chat box thumbs up if you're competent. If you're a bit hesitant, you can do an emoji that kind of resembles that type of hesitancy. Expert, you can leave a thumb, or expert, you can just say an expert if you want to. Something that allows me to know what level of understanding that you have of resilience. Awesome, guys. I'm glad that you have an understanding at a good level, which means that we can touch base on it and build that understanding. So I'm excited. Okay, so if you notice about resilience is that there's many different definitions of resilience. The main point of the slide is to showcase how there's similarities across definitions, and you're able to understand that it's your ability to bounce back when you're dealing with adversity. Now, the level adversity. It can be from something small to something major. It's just how the ability to actually bounce back from that. So whether it's your car battery not dying before a meeting that you have to get to dealing with a catastrophe that happened to your local community. So it's just your ability for you to actually bounce back from that and how quickly you're able to overcome it. So we're going to relate this to graduate school, and how you are in graduate school is because you want to either obtain a professional or an intellectual goal. Most of us wants to do both. So we have our professional and our intellectual goals, and we are needing to accomplish this graduate school program that we're in order to improve ourselves while we're still at the same time balancing work and our social life and everything in between those areas. So how does this relate to driving a car? How does this journey throughout graduate school relate to you driving a car? Let me know in the chat if you want to take a guess. Okay, ability to handle multiple actions at once. When you're driving a car, you're dealing with a lot of different types of things when you drive a car, such as the steering wheel, the rear view mirror, the cars around you, the dashboard, and those lights that actually mean something. Sometimes you don't actually know what they mean, but it might be important because it's red and it's flashing. So yes, the ability to handle multiple actions at once and how that relates to both your journey in graduate school and driving a car, that's perfect. And then Jessica is currently typing in the chat. So if you guys want to continue to go in the chat and write a response as well, just let me know, or just write in the chat. So one thing that I would like to mention is when we're driving our car, some of us may have a 2022 car and others may have a 2001 car. And that can make our journey a bit differently depending on the situation. So Jessica mentioned that it is to remain in control and paying attention to your environment and being mindful / working with others. So that is completely right, and how the car relates to graduate school, because you have to remain in control because you are the driver of your car and also the decisions that you make in graduate school. So by having to juggle all of that, it can become stressful and overwhelming. So I'm going to go to the next slide and talk more further about that and making that connection with graduate school and driving a car. Okay, so again, you must keep driving in order to get to your destination, but you don't check in with your car, which is yourself. So all of a sudden, all these lights keeps on coming on and remaining on. Some not as stressful or worrisome, but they start to pile up and you're not at your destination yet. So when you go about graduate school, you have midterms, you have random assignments, group projects, interacting with your cohort. You also have interviews scheduled. You have family issues as well. Or you may have really exciting things that you want to commit to with your family. Everything just keeps on piling up, and they're random too, just like a car dashboard. When those lights come up, you kind of get shocked. You're like, wait a second. I thought I changed the oil like 100 miles ago, but turns out you already went 5,000 miles so quickly. So how do you feel when this situation happens? So put in the chat about how you would feel. So how are you currently feeling in graduate school? We're like 5 weeks in. I'm feeling overwhelmed, like typically. Sometimes I do feel overwhelmed on a Monday because that's when everyone responds on email to me, and I'm like, okay. All coming at once, and then the professors are posting their slides for the week, and I'm like, I did not read that chapter that I was supposed to over the weekend. And then, of course, my family tends to message me on a Monday. I have no idea why they can't message me on a weekend. So I get overwhelmed. And like people in the comments are mentioning, they do get overwhelmed. And sometimes you get worried of the possible results because, again, the decisions that you make now can impact hopefully just short-term things. So as in, okay, do I focus on this project or this essay? And those decisions that you make tends to impact you, hopefully not as negatively as you're hoping it won't. So we understand how you guys are feeling. Another comment just mentioned about how overwhelmed that person feels and how, yeah, losing it for a minute or two makes sense. But yeah, continuing on, that's our next thing, which is resilience. So yeah, so what I like is how I mentioned, how do you feel? Is that I didn't say, okay, what's your strategy to make sure that you've handled everything right? I don't really believe in going towards that solution automatically. Like, this is how you solve your problem. I think, and Brene Brown mentioned it perfectly, is you first have to feel what's going on as an acknowledge that, yes, you are overwhelmed. How can I prevent this in the future? So when you're able to actually feel yourself through these situations, you're more likely to process the emotions, understand what's going on, and then act after you process the emotions. It's a lot healthier than just being so solution oriented to where you never actually address the root problem, which is the emotional side. And we'll get to that on the next slide to talk about why it's important to actually process those emotions first before you start diving in. Okay, so what I like to look at this slide is first the definition of stress. And stress is the feeling of being overwhelmed or unable to cope with mental or emotional pressure. So I tend to need to first understand what the term means. So when people say, oh, I'm so stressed out, I don't know what they actually mean by that. So I have to look up the definition to actually understand what they mean by that. Because growing up, no one really taught me vocabulary words about what it actually means to be happy, overwhelmed, excited, depressed, because there's actually definitions for each term. And that goes with like emotional intelligence and all this. But stress is the main focus here. And stress is the feeling of being overwhelmed and unable to cope with mental or emotional pressure. So if we look at this graph, we are able to look into the level of pressure that one has on. So the beginning, or the one closest to the 0 axis, which is towards the far left, is low pressure. And then the far right is high levels of pressure. That's a lot for someone to handle. Now, if you look at the y-axis, which is the performance, you tend to perform highly when you're in that right level of stretch. So you hit comfort and stretch. That's actually the optimal level that you should be in. So you're growing in your development, but you're also being a bit challenged, but you're able to handle it, right? So you consistently going to that level of comfort because you acquired the skill. And then you're being challenged with a new project, with a new topic to learn, to master. So that's that beautiful balance of back and forth, right? But that doesn't necessarily have that organic rotation. It does not happen like that. Unfortunately, life kind of comes at you all at once sometimes, and they're a bit more fast pitches than you're typically used to. More commitments. Some months you may have nothing to do. And then other months you have family obligations, you have professional projects. You may actually have lost your job that same month as all the other things that are happening. So that's when you start going into that stress and overwhelmed. And if you saw that when you became strained, you're starting to see some negative effects that are currently going on. And of course, when you become overwhelmed, that's when that exhaustion, that burnout, some health problems are starting to show up. And it happens so quickly, I swear. I kind of that person who enjoys doing a lot. I love being involved. I don't really like being bored because I just like to be stimulated, whether it's just learning or just growing and developing. I love it. I, of course, love sitting in a quiet room and relaxing, don't get me wrong. But developing myself professionally, I love that. I really love being a family-oriented person as well. So I have a lot of commitments, and sometimes everything just like hits me all at once, and I instantly become overwhelmed. And yeah, so how can I bounce back when it all suddenly happens? So I hope everyone can relate to that. Put a thumbs up or just a nice emoji in the chat to let me know that, yes, this is completely normal. I think we've all experienced this in graduate school. So thank you for putting it in the chat, guys. Okay, so symptoms of becoming overwhelmed. So there's some physical experience that you may feel, which is heaviness in your chest, shoulder, neck, back pain, tends to be in the upper region, very pinches in your shoulders too. I tend to get some nerve pressure or nerve pinches on my face when I become very overwhelmed or stressed, which is a bit worrisome to me. So there's some other ones, but I want to focus more on the right. The right is feeling on edge. So you may snap at certain people that you're not used to snapping on. You're like, wait, why did I just snap at someone that I love? This is totally out of character for me. It's hard to keep track of things that are currently going on. Trouble making decisions, because again, your brain is kind of on overdrive. It's making so many decisions already to where it just becomes kind of paralyzed from making decisions. Trouble getting your work done. It's hard to finish very simple tasks. Also, some people may use alcohol or drugs to relieve their stress temporarily, which my heart goes out to those people. Relying on unhealthy coping mechanisms is something that I wish I wish people didn't use those to escape, but I do understand that. So helping a friend out when I see that and reaching out saying, hey, how are you doing? Doing those type of conversations when I see them handling their stress in that way. I personally do that because I care about that person. And then, of course, wanting to isolate from people that you care about. I tend to do that as well, just because I'm so overwhelmed and anxious, and I just need time alone. I need to just isolate. I just need time alone. But again, I'm pushing away from people that I actually care about and that I love, and I want to be with them for the rest of my life. So that's a bit of a symptom that shows me that I'm a bit overwhelmed, because again, if I care about these people, but I keep pushing them away, that doesn't exactly make sense. So noticing those symptoms is how we're able to handle our stress. So having that self-awareness is very important, and I hope you guys are able to look at these symptoms and find something relevant. You can put in the chat if you want to a symptom that you kind of relate to, totally optional. I understand how vulnerable that is to admit to a symptom of being overwhelmed. So just know this is a safe place. Okay, so we're going to transition into building that resilience. So you understand resilience, you understand what it is when you become overwhelmed, those symptoms that you need to address when you start to notice. And then also now it's time to build that resilience, and it is reading a book, taking a walk, listening to music, soothing bath, something that you can allow yourself to actually relax and decompress and reflect on the day and just process what's going on, really just connecting with yourself. And then, of course, we're going to talk about how developing that social support, positive. Make sure that the people that you surround yourself are supportive to you, and really acknowledge what you're currently going through and just provide that healthy level of support. We all need that. So the research shows that when you actually surround yourself with a social support system that's positive, it can enhance resilience to stress. And that's what we're currently trying to achieve here. So I'm going to have Jenny take over the next slide, which is talking about community and diversity, equity, and inclusion, and connecting those two together. So I'm going to have Jenny talk. So I'm excited for her. And Jenny's currently on mute.
Are you guys really good at lip reading? Can anybody guess what I said? So I'm going to be talking about community and DEI, specifically with the resiliency overlay. So let's see. I haven't operated this way before, so we're learning something new together. All right, so what is community? Community is a group that cares about each other. The biggest thing about community is that sense of belonging. There's shared perspectives in community. Community has the sense of shared space. So it can be virtual communities, right? Or it can be physical, geographical communities. and they can have diverse characteristics. So it doesn't have to be a homogenous group. There has to be a solidifying identity element. That would be our community component. So seeing communities, and for me, thinking of communities, it's kind of like the little ripples in the water when you drop something into water. And so community is on the small level, that micro level. That's how you do life together. So those are your social ties. They're kind of described by like your norms, your customs, and your identity, but these can also apply to your larger groups, your macro groups as well. So some examples for that micro are going to be like your neighborhoods, Greek life, or your clubs that you're affiliated with, attending VSU, right? And professional organizations, or your local chapter of your professional organization, being in a military unit, and friends groups that you identify, like your little squad, like that's who we are, that people can tell us, you're distinguished and you have life done together. Your larger groups, your macro groups, are going to be your affiliations with your national or international communities. So a lot of times it's religion, norms, customs, identity that's built around things like ethnicity, if you're religiously affiliated, your church, your temple, the university student in general. So like your small level would be which university you attend, but that you're a university student at all is a larger group, right? And you have unique. So sorry?
Okay.
Hold on. Say, just unmute.
Okay. And so a lot of times, like our smaller little pockets are part of bigger ripples, right? And so that's why I think of it as kind of this like ripples in a pond as part of something that's even bigger, right? And all of that diversity, all of that individual unique experience we bring to the table and impact other groups. So you have your nationality, things of that nature. Something that I think is a really important point of conversation is ethnicity, because that's something that's even bigger because it involves a lot of components. Your identity is built on that common cultural background, or what your descent is, your traditions, your ancestry, your language, your history, your society, all of the things that distinguish your group from another group, and a lot of tremendous community. There's strength that's built into that community based on your traditions and where you come from. And so a lot of times when we're looking around, trying to find our place in things, we're looking for those norms, those cultures, and customs that are comforting and familiar to us. So belonging is being a part of community. It's a group that cares about each other. We are sharing those perspectives. We're having diverse experience. But it's, again, just like all of these words were like everything that I thought of. And so I was like, oh, this is perfect. We could spend a little time reflecting on that. If there's anything that you guys think of as far as community that, you know, you've uniquely experienced, feel free to add that too. But for me and my understanding of community, it's really about that belonging, that friends, that family. It can be small, it can be big, it can be such a source of strength. So with DEI and community and resiliency, this background picture is the 2003 Special Olympics, the opening ceremonies. And so it's inclusion, right? So we think of the Olympics and stuff, and you know, you think of like the most peak physique performance, all of that stuff. But Special Olympics is actually really amazing. The amount of overcoming obstacles. If you ever get the opportunity to volunteer with Special Olympics, it's amazing. The heart, the passion, the intensity of the athletes, like they came to win, and they are already overcoming so much. But there's strength in that community because they communicate, they share resources, they build each other up, and you know, there isn't the you know, a lot of times we get oriented around ableism and just getting to watch people who we think, oh, they have to be, you know, taken care of in a particular way, and they're just amazing and capable of things that, like me, I'm not even capable of, like the things that they're able to do. And it's really, really cool. And so when we evolve and expand our communities, when we open up to diversity and equity and inclusion, that can be normative in our communities, and that can actually enhance that sense of belonging, right? It can expand our communities. So that's another way that we build a relationship with one another, and that helps us to learn more skills and more capabilities, and really that like prepared mindset that we know that obstacles are coming, and we've seen other people walk it, and we've watched a variety of difficulties experienced, and so we can kind of plan either a strategy for overcoming, or we know who we can go to when we have a hard time with something. So those sources of strength to overcome those obstacles in our community, you can't really replace the foundations that are our community and the pillars of our identity that they build into us. So then let's see. I think that one's the end of mine. Yep, that one's the last one for me for now. So I'm not sure who to hand it over to, Emily.
It's okay, it's me. Hi.
Okay.
Okay, so it's building a community. We're going to have Jenny actually go back to leading how to build a resilient community for your journey into building that resilience and getting that social support through other people. She's just going to showcase a slide. It's going to be quick, don't worry. Then Christy is going to give you guys a demo to develop a virtual professional development community that relates to your own professional goals. With that involved LinkedIn and Facebook. So Quickly, Jenny, enjoy.
Which slide are we on? I'm trying to follow, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It's building resilience with a virtual community. Oh, your slide, the resilience.
On 18.
20.
Okay, so building the resilience with the virtual community it's the way that we reach out to those that are around us. That virtual community, again, it's that identity, that shared perspective. That's where we can go and have our sense of belonging, right? So one of the the biggest places that I've found right now for my virtual community is LinkedIn, right? Because I want to get a job, but also too, I'm learning about actually one of my greatest exciting areas, DEI and resiliency. And so I am connecting with people who work in this community, and I do it through virtual community. So there are online groups that you can connect with. There are community at VSU as well that are great resources. And so here are some keywords that you can look for: burnout, resilience, wellness, vulnerability. You can look at being proactive with resilience, things like that are just because I know that resilience is how we respond to things, but it's also that we have been alive for longer than 5 minutes. We realize that there's going to be stress, right? And stress is just an indicator that something is going on. And so how we're going to respond to that is our choice and our power. And so when we want to build that resilience in ourselves and building in our communities, especially with COVID, and it made it really hard to make a geographic community, that virtual community became a tremendous place of exchange and encouragement and seeing how to get things done. So virtual community is becoming even more significant, I would say, as the world's continuing to change really, really fast, and learning how to navigate that, I think, is incredibly beneficial. Emily?
Yep, so I'm going to show you guys quickly how to navigate yourself on LinkedIn and Facebook to find these virtual community. I'm going to share my screen.
Okay, Christy, you should be able to share your screen now.
Yes, hold on. Okay, can you guys see my screen? It just say that I need permission. Hold on.
Huh.
Can you guys see it?
I actually cannot.
Yeah, it told me that another person took control, so I don't have it anymore.
Oh my gosh, it's because of me.
Can you guys see it now?
No, let me see if I can fix this real quick. If not, I can just take the reins.
Okay.
This is called resiliency, people. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we'll see if we can share my screen. If not, we'll just move forward. I'm sorry. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry about that, guys. Sorry, Christy. If you want to, you can navigate me and tell me how to find a organization. Okay, so LinkedIn is a great way for you guys to get involved and build a professional development. So, Christy, tell me how I can do this.
So
If I'm exposing myself.
it's so the slide that you guys looked earlier, there are some keywords that you guys can look for. some of the keywords I can think of is vulnerability, resilience, burnout, and all that. You don't need the hashtag sign, but if you search building resilience in the search bar on LinkedIn, and there will be some suggestion, and it say in groups. So that will be the fourth one. Yep, and then you will see, the top 2 or top 3 community that they have more than 100 members. That means, they are the people in this group are active and people sharing. So the purpose of these groups is to educate you on what resilience is, how you can build resiliency and build more connection to broaden your virtual support group. And I'm pretty sure they are all private group, meaning that you will have to click on it and then request to join. So if you can pick one, Emily, and then we can show an example of that. Okay, and then if you click on request to join, they will respond you like almost immediately. And then you will be able to see people in here posting and read their article, read the post. It's really very informative and like can maybe helpful for you in some way. So that's about LinkedIn. So the same thing for Facebook. You just have to go to your search bar, and the keywords that I normally look for is either building resiliency in the workplace, burnout, vulnerability. And if you just click enter, tap enter, and they will show you some private groups. If you scroll down, yeah, there's an option that you can see. Yep, some groups. There are even more. So other keywords that can be helpful for your search are wellness, healthcare, what else? And burnout, or emotional intelligence. They're very informative and educate really well on the topic of resilience.
Perfect. Okay, well, thank you, Christy, for doing that. And it's really useful, especially if you're an online student and you're wanting to showcase. So let me go back to our presentation, and we can talk more about different types of communities with a DEI focus. So with DEI, there is, what I like about DEI is that there's special groups that are catered towards individuals that are part of a distinct group. They may have different needs. So these groups that are local to Valdosta, they offer that DEI inclusive groups. So there is the LGBTQ support group, Black and People of Color support group, VSU Hispanic Mentoring Program that the Career Opportunity showcases, as well as some VSU student organizations, such as Her Campus, which is there for people who are wanting to work on poetry. There's the Natural Sisters, Caribbean Student Association as well. And then there's also specific groups that support your mental health, such as the Anxiety Support Group. Here is the flyer that has information for the BIPOC support group. If you're wanting to continue to build your resiliency, there is a weekly meeting that the Counseling Services Center offers. There's a virtual option, which is Tuesdays at 3 p.m., as well as the Queer and Trans support group. There's also a Authentically Me support group where you're able to get that social support and, of course, develop that acceptance and belonging that people are currently in need of. Here's more of the resources on wellness, such as the VSU Wellness Hub, and additionally the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, to where it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in case you're wanting to talk to someone. So we have all these resources compiled together for everyone to use. We're going to be sending it out with our PowerPoint and a recording of this presentation for you to access and utilize these resources. So if you look at the slide, you will look in the notes that there is some specific trainings that you can go towards if you want to continue to develop those habits to where you can engage in those meaningful conversations with students or your friends and your family that you care about who may be struggling to develop that resiliency in themselves, because it's really hard to develop resilience. So having someone to help you build that type of resiliency by offering those type of resources or those workshops will be helpful. It's just first engaging in those conversations may be difficult. So the resources that are in these note sections will be helpful to you to really understand how you can reach those people who may be in trouble with handling the life stressors. As always, we are going to be sending a link for you to be added to our group Me. We are the Association of Graduate Students, so we have 45 people in our group Me who are there for you if you have any type of questions, or you just want to see if someone is available to study with you in the Odom Library, or just to meet virtually. You know, I'm sure that there's a student that would be willing to talk to you and hang out with you just to connect and simply talk about graduate school. I know that I will be available for you, as well as our Instagram. And then if you guys want to, we have a discussion of the day. And once we get through these questions, our workshop is over. It's just a way for us to bond socially with each other in the chat and really engage and talk about this topic. So I'm going to have Jenny lead this and talk and go through these questions and engage with y'all.
All right. So when we're talking about resilience, have you had a time of profound personal growth through that you've encountered adversity and that you would like to share? So have you had profound personal growth through encountering adversity? And it doesn't have to be like, I know it can be difficult to be vulnerable. So it doesn't have to be something that's very high disclosing. If you can think of anything that, you know, was just a challenge that at the time was just kind of growing pains, but that on the other side of it, you're like, I'm really glad that I went through that because it made me better. And you guys are more than welcome to unmute. You don't have to type it in the chat too, but I see a typing, so I'm gonna give some space for it.
Hello, everybody. This is Tremaine. I want to share one of my moments because I'm big on transparency. One of the moments that made me feel really good about myself was during the summer. You know, COVID happened. I was unemployed, and it was a bad situation. Like, water was off about 2 months, lights were off, internet gone. But I didn't use that excuse not to do well that semester in grad school. I was able to borrow a laptop from one of my organizations. I had friends who allowed me to go over to their spots to do my schoolwork over there. And during that summer, I made straight A's. While that's the first time I made straight A's in grad school, while I had everything going on, I was like, if one thing's going to happen, I'm still pass these classes.
That is fantastic. And I have to say, I've worked with you professionally, and you you stand out as just this incredible personality. Like, I know that with my students, like when they get to you, like they're in good hands. So you, in the way that you overcome adversity, like you have built such a strong reputation for yourself, founding the CRIBSA and then the work that you do, like you're doing awesome things. Thank you for sharing your adversity experience as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I see some typing. Would anybody else like to share any experiences? Okay, Jessica says that she ended up in Atlanta after Hurricane Katrina with her family, or without family. She had to learn vulnerability and facing many obstacles with the help of strangers. I was in Atlanta during that time, so I remember. And yeah, I remember just the influx of people coming from Louisiana and just how hard it was. That a lot of people got to come to Georgia State, which is where I was doing my undergrad degree at the time, and so I had a lot of classmates that came, and I mean they just like picked up and ran, and it was a lot for what they overcame to finish their degrees and keep pushing. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. But I guess I'll share a little bit of my story. I am a military spouse that's lived overseas, and we were there for almost 10 years. Yeah, you're a sophomore. I don't remember which year I was in, but yeah, awesome. We probably passed each other somewhere on that giant campus. But yeah, so I lived overseas and couldn't do my master's because I couldn't do any practicum or clinicals or anything like that. So I, when we got stationed back stateside, it was my chance. But now I'm a mom of 5. So I have a lot of kids. And so it just kind of seems like I've constantly trained in resiliency and adversity. Like about 2 hours before I was supposed to be doing this presentation, my husband had taken my daughter to the playground and she fell and like busted her face. They came back, she came in the door crying and just bleeding everywhere. Like while I was like trying to like retouch my makeup and everything. And I was like, it's just constant overcoming. And, you just get used to this idea that like nothing is going to be normal in grad school. Nothing. There's always going to be something that comes up. So, and I would say that the profound growth in the experience is that like I am loving what I'm learning. And I've found things out about myself and more depths of strength than what I had even realized that I had. And I mean, I kind of feel like I was a seasoned, military spouse living overseas, like ops tempo's high, all of that stuff. But like going through grad school, it was like, it wasn't for everybody else. It was for me. And I think when you start doing stuff for yourself, it makes it even harder because you just, because you're asking a lot from other people too for your own growth. And so that was kind of part of my growth journey. It was just to be okay with not being the caretaker of everyone and to allow others to step in and fill spots that I had always filled. So that's kind of part of that adversity journey for me too, as my identity and my role in my community. So moving on to building resilience, what is one thing that you would like to apply that from what you've learned today? So for when you experience setback, if you guys would like to share something.
I think I'm always reminded to have to do this. It doesn't come naturally, but I have to talk about what I'm currently going through. And I have to understand that I'm not burdening anyone by talking about what I'm currently going through in my life. Just because by talking to that person, it helps navigate some things that I have to go through. It doesn't have to be solution oriented. It can just be releasing what is currently going on in my head. And just having someone who's receptive and understanding and just saying like, hey, thank you for letting me know about this, Emily. Let me know if you need anything. That type of support is great. And through those support groups that I've listed, you'll be able to get that type of support automatically because they are probably going through the similar things that you're currently going through. So definitely getting involved in those support groups will help.
Awesome. Yeah, especially at this time in the semester too. Like when the stress starts to hit about midterms and you're like, am I just crazy or is this just the worst? And having other people to go, no, you're not crazy. Like we're all we're all in the same place. That's always really helpful. We're a little crazy. Yeah. We got one more typing. Okay, Jessica says that she reaches out to classmates. All right, so let's see. Yeah, she reaches out to classmates and she checks in with them and they talk about their stress and try to offer each other solutions, which is really great accountability and just being good community. Sounds like you've got a pretty good network. Moving on to the last question, community. Who is your main support system while in school? It can be a smaller or a larger community. Where do you go to get support while you're going through this tremendous season of change? There's a whole lot going on psychologically, professionally, maturing and all of that awesome stuff. Where do you go for that support? We got Shannon typing and Emily. Shannon says she goes to many people, a few in her cohort, friends, and even people at work. That's good. That's awesome that you have people at work that are, safe and that you can trust. That sounds like a really healthy environment. Emily says that it varies for her too. It's really reassuring to me that you guys have environments where you feel safe, because that's really that first place to start being vulnerable. You've got to feel safe to be able to be exposed and to process things. So that's really good to hear that you guys have your safe spaces and you have people that you trust. Honestly, okay, Jessica says that honestly, it was tough to be vulnerable in grad school as an older student and the expectations that most people my age would have it together. Yes, Jessica, I feel you on that. Absolutely. Thankfully, the weirdness of starting during COVID and starting from remote, and everybody was just sort of awkward because it was like, are we getting to start school? Are we not getting to start school? Okay, everything's gonna be online, but it may end up going into like the weirdness kind of threw everybody off, and so that was my time to shine. I was like, okay, I'm gonna jump in and be weird. But yes, it is difficult to be vulnerable in grad school. For me, what I find is that I really enjoy my cohort as human beings. They're all different and each one has a different experience. And so when they communicate, like there's so much going on with their answers and where they've come from. And so I really get to enjoy the experience of engaging with people, and then the heavier processing, the things that I know that, it's not that people are not mature enough or anything like that. It's just the things that I feel like are more burdensome. I will go to another segment of my community, right? So then I go and I talk to somebody else because they kind of are also removed from some of the stressors, and so the encouragement can be there without the conflict. And so I completely can relate with that being an older student component of community. But I hope that you are having those connections to your classmates and being able to talk out your stress and everything, like you had kind of mentioned with one of the other questions, that that you've been able to find that foundation's awesome. So is there anything that anybody else would like to add for the discussion for today, for resilience, building that resilience, or the community element? All right. Well, if that is it, you guys have been lovely to engage and chat with. Thank you so much for your grace and for your engagement. It's been fantastic. Emily, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Hi. Okay, guys. Thank you all. If you guys have any questions, let me know. If you want to, you can go and be included in our group me. Christy has sent out the Teams link, and in that email is where you will find the link to join the group me today. Tomorrow, she'll be sending out the recording to the participants and be including that group me link as well. So thank you all. Please feel free to email one of us your thoughts. Any feedback that you would like to mention, feel free to do that. We will respond to you directly if needed. All right. Well, thank you guys for staying. Really exciting things that are going to be happening in March and April. So till next time.
Bye, guys.